Hi, we'll be starting your foreign trade policy 2015 to 2020. This policy was time limit was till 31st March 2020. But we all know that there was COVID-19 and 2020 there could not be any sessions or there could not be any proper functioning, because of which this policy, foreign trade policy, has been extended for one more year. So your foreign trade policy, the objective of this policy was to make a particular policy which would boost international trade. So the main objective was to double the exports, to really double the exports. So in there was around our exports in 2015 were around 450 million. Okay, so our was 450 billion. We plan to have doubled our exports to 900 billion by 2019-2020. However, we could not achieve that target of 900 billion, and we are still around somewhere around 500 billion till date. So our objective has further, this entire policy has been extended. Let's see what was the policy about and what are the key aspects in this policy. So the objective was export promotion, and whatever we'll be seeing in this policy is all about how to boost exports and what the government is really doing to encourage exports in India, from India. So the foreign trade policy has been extended for another 1 year. This policy was ideally framed for only 5 years, but now it has a validity extended up to 31st March 2021, and a new policy till it is not there, this one will only be applicable. What we will be seeing in this policy, if you go to see, we will be seeing the entire core summary, core aspects of this policy. We will be seeing the salient features in this policy. We will be seeing two schemes. Okay, two primary schemes, one which is for goods, which is your goods merchandise exports from India scheme, and the other one is for services, which is your service export from India scheme. Now, as we had seen, this scheme was introduced on 4th April 2015 by Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman. It was a policy made for 5 years with the objective of doubling the exports by 2020 to $900 billion. However, this could not be achieved due to the economic conditions, and now we plan to achieve this in the next year. This policy which is made is in line with Make in India, Digital India and Skill India, which is the pet projects of Narendra Modi. Now, according to the PM, the Make in India was mostly to encourage manufacturing. So what are we planning to do? We are going to give a lot of manufacturing benefits so that companies all around the world manufacture in India and then export it out of India. So it is to not only export but to become manufacturer exporters. So both way we can develop employment as well as raise foreign revenue. And also, if we see in these rules, in these regulations, a lot of things have been done to make business easy and to facilitate trade very in according to the global standards. The Director General of Foreign Trade is the authorized body for the foreign trade policy. So this was the introduction of the policy introduced by Nirmala Sitharaman. It is in line with all the Skill India, Digital India and the Ease in India campaign. Objective is to double the exports to $900 billion. Now, starting with the scheme and what kind of questions can be framed in the exam. So whatever I'm going to teach is what is important from exam point of view. So from the entire policy, I'm highlighting the most important. So you can expect these are the ones that are going to come in your exams, and I'm covering all the past exam questions as well. So real quick and small, let's see. The foreign trade policy actually has two most important schemes. So if I was to tell you the most important thing in this scheme, ये policy में what is the most important? It is your MEIS scheme and SEIS scheme. Am I clear till you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is for goods. This is for goods. It's a scheme specifically for goods, and this scheme is for services. Let's see what are these schemes one at a time. So first we'll start with the merchandise exports from India scheme. Now what is this scheme? The merchandise actually means goods. Merchandise means what? Goods. So we plan to export goods from India. That's how this scheme is made. Now before this, before the FTP policy 1520, before that there was a lot many goods for a lot many schemes for goods. Around 5 to 6 schemes. All the schemes have been clubbed and you have only one scheme called as MEIS scheme. Am I clear till here? So this is the first thing.
Sir.
In case if they ask, write a short note on the MEIS. You will write that there were around 5 schemes to promote exports of goods. They all have been merged. All have been merged into one single scheme called as MEIS. Okay. Now, what does this scheme do? Okay. What is this scheme? So, in this scheme, as you export, okay, as I export, so I will have a export turnover, yes or no? Turnover means sale. I will have a export turnover. Now, according to the export turnover, let's say I have done an export of 50 crores. I have done an export of 50 crores. And this is also called as put on board or free on board value. Okay, so this is a customs valuation that they do. How much exports have you done? So the valuation will be done called as the export turnover or FOB value. This is the invoice price of what you exported. Now, once you have exported, let's say of 50 crores, the benefits will flow on basis of how much export turnover I have. So they will say that you have done an export of 50 crores. So depending on which kind of products I am exporting and which area I am exporting in, the benefits are differed. So for example, they can give me a percentage. So they will say you will get a 2% benefit of your export turnover. Fine, understood till here? So the benefit, for example, is it is always a percentage. So I get a percentage of the export turnover. Once it is calculated, once the export turnover is calculated, they give something called as duty scripts. Let's say I have done an export turnover of an amount. Let's say it is 1 lakh, for example. Okay, rupees 1 lakh is my benefit. The benefit that government is going to give me of rupees 1 lakh depending on my export turnover. This the government doesn't give you cash. They don't give you cash. They give you something called as scripts, duty scripts. Understanding till here? In this scheme, on basis of how much exports I am doing, government is giving me duty scripts. This duty scripts is like a credit, that I am getting, which I can encash, it or use it against payments of any duties that I have, import duty, or if I have to pay for any charges, etc. I can use this scripts. Means what? I have a duty script of rupees 1 lakh. Should I be happy or sad? Let's say we should be happy. I'm happy. If you have a credit when you go in any shop and you have a credit note, will you be happy or no? When you go in any shop and you have a credit note, would you be happy? Obviously, yes, because you can buy goods against it. So, same way, this is like a credit note which you get of rupees 1 lakh. So whenever I have a liability of paying taxes, I can tell the government that I have got a benefit from you only, I'm using my benefit. Clear? So this is what is the reward to the exporter. So here, if I export to Pakistan, you think the government is going to give me benefits? Now the benefits are all divided on which kind of goods I'm exporting and which area I'm exporting. So the rewards for exports of notified goods to notified markets are given and shall be payable as a percentage of the FOB realized in foreign exchange. So how much foreign exchange you have got, accordingly a certain percentage of the benefit will be given to you. This benefit can be used to pay taxes in India, etc. Now, for the purpose of granting incentives, the countries have been grouped in three categories. One is, exporting to traditional markets. If I export in category B or category C, accordingly the benefits differ. Now, more and more goods will be covered, so it is beneficial for the exporters. Let's say if my goods, what I'm exporting, let's say onions, and government doesn't want onions to be exported, so you think they will add it in this scheme? You think they will add it in the scheme if there is a shortage in India itself? Do you think we'll encourage exports of it? No, sir. No. So in the MEIS scheme, there are some goods according to the demand in India. They will put it in the negative list that these goods cannot be exported, so the benefits will not be given in this scheme. So more and more goods added, it is good for the exporter. If the goods are removed, obviously then the exporter will not get benefits of this duty scrips. So the government has, to encourage exports and exporters, they have expanded the coverage of MEIS by adding 110 new items. Total, it is 2,228 items have been there. Now the debits or the payments, in this scheme, the incentives are to be provided. Is it provided in cash or it is provided in the form of duty scrips? In what form is the benefits given? Duty scrips. Duty scrips. So the government doesn't give you a refund. They give you duty scrips. It's like a credit note. Go and use it when you have any liability of tax. Okay, and it is based on the percentage of the FOB value of export. So how much foreign currency have you brought, on percentage of that benefit is given to you. Now there were around 5 schemes which were there earlier. They all have been merged into one called as the MEIS schemes. Now which are these 5 schemes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can remember these schemes, it is fine, but I doubt you will be able to remember. It's just for the knowledge sake. Once we've mentioned this, then we're going to see, are all goods covered? I told you, are all goods covered for benefit under this scheme? So the answer is no. Wherever the government feels that there is a shortage, they will not allow benefits. Ineligible categories under the MEIS scheme. Okay, so this you will have to read. So this has come in the past exam question, the name of few ineligible categories under the MEIS scheme. So any 5-7 points you can read. So some things which we feel, maybe sugar. So depending on the market, domestic market, what is the need in India, if there is a shortage in India itself and you are exporting, government does not like that export, so they can keep it in the ineligible category. Okay, so here they have given you, so Oreos, some kind of cereals, sugar, beach sand. Now we know how much sand is required from the beaches. We're exporting that, that's not allowed. Service exports, now since it is for merchandise, services are not covered here. Okay, then items which are put under the prohibited list by the government. Okay, certain kind of exports through transshipment. Now transshipment, what happens is, if the goods have come into India and they have just come for transit purpose, okay, and they automatically leave outside India. So obviously you will not get any benefits. Let me explain. Okay, now you don't need to know all this. Just a few points you learn. Supplies from certain DTA to SEZ areas, or where they are already getting some other benefits. So in that case, they are not eligible. Let me explain what is transshipment. Okay, so this is there in your customs as well. Tell me one thing: if you want to go from one country to another by waterways, by a ship, is it possible that you will touch upon some other countries? Now, obviously, it is possible that you might touch upon some other countries due to the geographical aspect. Okay, or you must have just taken a halt for refueling or some repair work. So that really cannot be considered as a export when it goes from here, because it's just a goods which have just come. Like if you remember a stopover, we take a stopover to go to another place. So they have taken a stopover and then they're going. So it's not really exports from India. Understood till here? Therefore, benefits cannot be given of exports. Then diamond, gold, silver, platinum, we are not giving any exports benefits under this. So this list can keep changing. Meat products, milk, crude petroleum products with respect to metal, certain which are under the certain zones, etc. Exports from certain zones, because they are already getting a lot of benefits. Then giving some further benefit does not make sense. Okay, so they have given you a list for items which do not fall and cannot claim benefit under the scheme. Maybe one, because they are demerit, we don't like them to be exported, or they are super rich, they can afford this extra payment of tax like gold, silver, diamonds, etc. Or they already are getting a lot of benefits under different various other schemes. So we deny benefits under this scheme. Now coming to your service export from India scheme. This has the same concept, that you get certain duty scripts on basis of the net exports that exports of service that you have done. So let me just highlight that. The rates of incentivization under this scheme are based on the net foreign exchange earned. So how much services have you given in foreign exchange you have earned, that net, how much has come into India. On basis of that you will be given duty scripts. Same concept, duty credit scripts will be given. This can be used to pay certain taxes. Clear till here? In this again we have to say a little bit history, that this scheme was there with service export from India scheme called as SEIS. Before this there was another scheme called as service from India scheme, SFIS. So this scheme has been replaced by this scheme. As we saw earlier, there were 5 schemes in goods which have been merged into one. For service there was one scheme. Now we have named it some other thing called as a service export from India scheme. So can I say they've just changed the name? Can I say they've just changed the name? But there is a very big difference in the scheme. Let's read what it is. Okay. The SEIS applies to service providers located in India instead of Indian service providers. In the earlier scheme, before 2015, benefits were only given to the Indian service providers who were exporting services. So tell me one thing, can a foreign company get with this benefit who have come into India and then exporting? Yes or no? Will a foreign company get this benefit who's coming into India and then exporting services? In this they wouldn't get, because what is happening, we are just saying Indian service providers who are exporting will get this benefit. So earlier what used to happen, service providers from other countries, when they used to come and set up their units in India and try to export, government was not giving benefit. But what did Narendra Modi say? PM Narendra Modi, he said that make in India campaign, come in India and come. So considering that we are telling all these worldwide companies to come in India. So when they come in India, they want benefits also. So we have now believe in this concept. We are giving benefits to everybody irrespective of where the origin is from. We are giving benefits to service providers located in India. Under this is the correct one. Okay, this scheme says that we are giving benefit to all service providers located in India. Now you tell me, can now a foreign company which has come into India and giving exports of services, will they get the benefit here? And yes. So it provides for incentives to all service providers of notified services which are providing services from India, irrespective of their constitution, profile, or their origin. So this is one of the benefits of service script. Now in both, whether it is MEIS for goods or SEIS for services, what benefit do they get when they export? The benefits are shown in what form? In the form of duty scripts. Understood till here? So these duty scripts are nothing but like a credit to you. You can you can take it, you can use this to pay off certain of your liability. So this says, they're saying a script actually means a chit or is a form of a credit. Okay, so duty free scripts are provided to exporters under the various export promotion schemes of the government. Under these schemes, the exporters get incentives at a certain percentage of the export value that they have done. This they can use to reimburse duties on imported inputs. Means what? If the government has given me this credit, for example, I have done an export of 400 crores. Okay. So the government says that you are eligible to certain duty free scripts. So let's say the benefit that they've given, the duty script that they have given me on basis of whatever percentage they have calculated, they are saying I'm getting a benefit of 1 CR. Is this 1 CR given in the form of cash? Have they given in the form of cash? This export benefit, is it in the form of cash? Answer is no. They have given in the form of a credit. Now what to do with the duty script, I'm wondering. 1 crore का क्या करूँ मैं, कैसे use करूँ? Can I take it in McDonald's and use it? Can I go to McDonald's and then use this 1 CR? Can I go and buy a house with this 1 CR? Can I buy a car, Ferrari with this 1 CR? Answer is no. I will use this whenever I am making inputs. So in future, whenever I'm making imports, I would have to pay a lot of import duty. Yes or no? So I can use this script to discharge my liability of my taxes. Is this clear? Now the question is that imagine I have shut down my business, or imagine I don't have any imports. I don't have any import duty. I'm not importing. So then what do I do with these scripts? Here we are assuming that the person is importing and then exporting. Maybe I'm manufacturing in India only and exporting. Then I am not able to utilize my 1 CR because I don't have that much tax liability. So then what the government is saying, you can sell it off. You can do what? You can transfer your credits to someone else. So maybe if I have another exporter, or maybe I have another dealer, I tell him that see, I have worth 1 crore. You please take these duty scripts of 1 crore. Give me 80 lakhs in cash. I'm fine. Give me 80 lakhs cash. So I can take my credits and I can transfer and give it to someone else also. I can redeem it with someone else. But I will have to sell it at a discount. Then only it makes sense for the dealer to buy these duty scripts from you. Clear till here? So these are all transferable. So normally export promotion schemes, these duty scripts can be transferable, cannot be transferable. It if it is not transferable, we want that dealer only should use it. However, under this scheme, okay, of MEIS and SEIS, all duty scripts will be transferable. So good thing for the exporters, yes or no? Pretty good. So they can sell them at a discount in the market. Okay, it is up to them if they can find a good value. They can even use these scripts to pay imports, tax, import duties that they have to pay on their capital goods or imports. Okay, and one more interesting thing with the respect to the basic custom duty. Okay, now just pay attention to this. So there is a lot of custom duties that he must have paid. With respect to basic custom duty, what he has paid, he can even claim a duty drawback. So basic custom duty paid or through a debit. So let's say when I must have imported goods, I must have paid basic custom duty. So there are a lot of custom duties that I have to pay. Different kinds of custom duty, additional custom duty, various charges, surcharge, 2-3 kinds of duties are levied. But basic is also levied. This basic custom duty, what is there, I can go and tell the government that see, this is against the basic custom duty. Give me duty drawback. Means the government will give you cash. So whatever duties you have paid, you can claim a duty drawback also. So you can draw back your duties against your BCD. So BCD paid in cash. So what I must have paid while importing, I can tell the government that I have these scripts, kindly refund it to me. So this is duty drawback is like a refund that I am claiming. But this is eligible only on one kind of custom duty, that is your BCD. Am I clear till here? Yes, sir. Yeah. Then comes the nature of rewards. We have now understood, again it is repeated, that you get in the form of duty script. So duty script shall be granted as rewards under these schemes. These duty scripts can be used, shall first of all be freely transferable. If you want, you can sell it off to whoever you want, that other person can do. And these duty scripts can be used for payment of custom duties, payment of excise duties, payment of service tax. Now, if they were there, okay, so when I say service tax, it could now be GST, payment of custom duty, custom fees, etc. So these duty scripts will help me discharge my duties liability. Now we are done with the two schemes. Now there is another concept of a status holder. Tell me one thing, status holders must be people who are big or small? Big. So business leaders who have excelled in international trade. Okay, so they have really make India proud, really proud, like Tata's, like Reliance. Okay, so they are very inspiring. For them, more benefits are given. Okay, so business leaders who have excelled in international trade and have successfully contributed to the foreign trade, okay, they will be recognized as status holders, and and they will get special treatment and privileges and procedural relaxations are also given, and we try to reduce their time and transaction cost also. So the bigger you go, we need to encourage these kind of people because they're earning foreign currency for us. Now again, they have given you different grades. Okay, so the levels have been given, so they can ask this in your exam. Okay, the status holders. So status holders on basis of how much export performance was there. So let's say if business in million US dollars, so 3 million US dollars exports I have done, so I will be called as a star, 1-star export house. I have done 3 million US dollars. So I get some benefits. If I make a exports of 25 million US dollars, then I will be called as a 2-star. Government can give you benefits accordingly. Same way 3-star, 4 stars, and let's call Tata's or Reliance who have made exports of greater than 2000 million US dollars. They will be called as 5-star export houses, and they get the maximum amount of privileges. Clear till here? Now question is, what kind of privileges will they get? So one of the most important privileges is they can pass their goods through self-certification. They can pass their goods through self-declaration. For example, let's say if this is the goods, this is the ship, and this is the containers. So these are the various containers and the goods to be stored. Normally, there would be a checking and assessment of these goods, yes or no. Let's say this is Mr. Nobody, okay, non-famous, Mr. Non-famous here, and you don't even know Mr. Anonymous. You don't know who this guy is. First time you're hearing. Should we check what exports you are doing? Should we check, open the goods, do a detailed checking of the goods, detailed checking of the documents? Yes or no? This is a new guy. But if you have Ratan Tata, do you think this same amount of declaration, same amount of documentation, same amount of inspection should be done? Answer is no. If Ratan Tata said that everything is fine and he is self-certifying, he is self-certifying, we will say, Aapne bola, you have said it is correct, you can please take the goods. You have always proved your track record, you have got 5 stars, always everything has been done clean. So therefore we will give you this benefit of self-declaration. You make your own declaration, you make your own certification that I have got these goods, this is the documentation, and this is there in the this. We will not do very detailed checking. So with this, can I say it will reduce the cost, transaction cost and time for these exporters? Okay, and not only that, they will also qualify for preferential treatment and the various agreements that the government has done. So obviously, it is a little beneficial to be a status holder. Next, coming in the FTP policy, the government plans to align it with the Make in India campaign launched by PM Narendra Modi in 2014. Now, to integrate, so what they have done, the was FTP policy was in 2015 to 2020, whereas Make in India was launched in 2014. So FTP policy, when it was being made, it has been made according to the Make in India campaign to promote, boost Make in India, Skill in India, Digital India. All of that it has been done. Now, what is the concept? Here we are giving a lot of benefits. Okay, to integrate the FTP with the Make in India, the government has reduced the export obligations. Now, export obligations are certain exporters have a lot of requirements to be completed. That requirements have been reduced. Reduce the export obligations for capital goods purchased from Indian suppliers. So if Indian suppliers are there, so Indian sellers are there. So for them, we have reduced the level of compliances. We have increased higher level of rewards. If we have, if the goods have been which are being exported, when they have been made or value addition has been made in India. So higher level of rewards under the MEIS for export items with high domestic materials or content. For example, let's say we are talking about plastic toys. Plastic toys which are being exported. This is being exported. Now when these plastic toys are being exported, we will give them the benefit. But if we come to know that the major components, major inputs have been manufactured in India, don't you think as per the Make in India campaign we should give them extra benefits? Yes or no? Yes. So this is what they're saying, that higher level of rewards for export items with high domestic contents. Domestic India के inputs है. India's inputs are there, which are now being exported. Take more benefits. Then again, export obligations, that is the export requirements, compliances have been reduced to 75%. मतलब 25% concession has been given, and the compliances and the obligations have been reduced to 75%. And the main objective is to promote domestic capital good manufacturing. So we are saying that manufacture in India, capital goods should be manufactured in India. So with that way, we are even reducing the export obligation for capital goods purchased from Indian suppliers. So foreigners are purchasing from India and Indian suppliers. They are purchasing capital goods. So we become very happy because when capital goods are sold, we get the maximum amount of foreign currency. Inputs are still toys, etc. But if you buy machinery, just imagine the amount of foreign currency that will come into India. Okay, and it has all be aligned with Make in India. I told you. So they are, make whenever it is made in India, extra benefits. Digital India. So we are all now we are coming to in a later part of this notes. You will realize that even the government has made a lot of online portals, online complaint redresses. This so mostly it is all automated, and Skill India initiative. So this has been aligned properly. Then trade facilitation and ease of doing business. So when I spoke about Digital India, the policy calls for online filing of documents. Okay, so making it paperless. So we have gone online, and 24/7 environment. That means online you can go and make a lot of filings and take approvals. And the entire process has been simplified, and there is e-governance, means the government is regulating us online. Notices can be sent online, communication can be made online. So both ways communication can be done online. So we have also focused on Digital India. Then there are certain other methods also, other measures that has been done. So benefits. So you can just read this up, not very important. Now again, just few more in case if they ask you. Okay, duty free import authorization scheme. So they will ask, what is this duty free import authorization scheme? They have never asked all this, but we are just doing once and for all, so we should know what it is. Firstly, I need to break. So the question can be, write a short note, maybe for 2-3 marks. What is this duty free authorization scheme? Now, firstly, when it comes, I would write it is based on the FTP policy 1520. I will write the objectives of FTP policy, yes or no. Now I will try to figure out what is this from the name. I want the answer from the name so that I don't have to memorize anything. So what is this line? It's so simple. Duty free import. So when I'm importing, do I have to pay duty? No. No. Exactly, that's the scheme. So when I import, I don't have to pay. Don't have to pay import duty. Import duty. And authorization means what? Can I say authorization means permission or sanction? So I have got a permission that I can import goods without paying duty. Now tell me one thing, why is the government allowing that on import don't pay duty? Because these goods, I'm telling the government that boss, I'm going to bring these goods, I'm going to do manufacturing in India, and then I will export these goods. So then the government will get the benefit of foreign exchange coming into India. So it is again a export benefit. It is what kind of a benefit? Export benefit. If I tell the government I am going to import it and I'm going to keep it in India only, will government exempt this duty free? Will they exempt the import duties? Answer is no. They will say, we are giving because you will then export it. Okay. So here they are saying the duty. So from the name you can crack it. So you will have to apply because it's a permission, right? So you have to apply to the government that under this scheme, I am an exporter. So let me, import goods. While importing, then I have to. So what is the logic again? It's pretty simple. I import the goods, I pay the duties, then when I export, I get a credit. So I'm saying when you want to give me a credit only, why are you even taking the money? Yes or no? जब क्रेडिट देना ही है और उसका सेट ऑफ लेना ही है तो मत चार्ज करो ना चार्ज. So obviously this is not always given on all products. The government can have certain products on which they want to give this benefit. Because here they are not charging only. In this other case, what is happening? They are charging you duty and then they give you credit of the exports, the taxes that you paid, etc. Okay, so they give you a benefit because you must have paid, etc. or duties before. So here they can decide. So in this scheme, which duty free imports of inputs. So I can import goods duty free. Inputs, fuel, oil, energy, sources, different kinds of goods, etc. for the production of export goods is allowed. So I am allowed to import inputs duty free so that I can manufacture and then export the goods under this scheme. Am I clear till here? Yeah. Now again I want you to crack this second scheme. Now if they ask, write a short note on this kind of a scheme. Now what is this scheme? Scheme, it's a export promotion. Now obviously all these schemes are for export promotion. So let's get to the topic. It's a capital goods export promotion. So in this scheme what is happening? We are saying that we want to export and give benefit to exporters. So we want to give benefit to exporters, right? But exporters of what under this scheme? Exporters of capital goods. Okay. So under this scheme helps in facilitating the import of capital goods for manufacturing quality goods to augment the competitiveness of India's exports. It enables import of goods that are used in pre-production, production, post-production without payment of custom duty. So what are they saying now? From the capital goods, I have to keep this in mind that this benefit is for capital good imports. So you can import, so in short just write it down that you can import capital goods duty free. Okay. Since it will be used to export goods clear till here? Simple and easy. Now coming to other parts, which exports through exhibitions, export promotion tours, showroom abroad, duty free shops, etc. Now here I am planning to export. Now again from the name, I am planning to export my goods. Yes or no? In this entire thing, in this title, it is written that I am trying to export the goods. Yes or no? Now when I'm exporting through holding exhibitions abroad. So I can go to Dubai 2020 Expo, put my my basic company details would be what, and I can sell it abroad. Or there are certain tours, so I can go to the world. I can have certain European tour where I will go to various places and try to sell my goods. Or there are certain showrooms abroad, I can have my goods there. Or there are certain duty free shops on certain malls and airports, so I can do my exports from there also. So who all can do? Let's see. So export oriented undertakings, export your hardware technology parks, electronic hardware technology parks, software technology parks, business technology parks are permitted too. So these are all good for India, where there is going to be some innovative software, innovative hardware going to be made, or these are export oriented undertakings. So they will have they are permitted to go to all these exhibitions and sell their goods. So they are allowed for holding participation in exhibitions abroad with the permission of the development commission, personal carriage of gold, silver, platinum jewelry, okay, so that you can sell abroad. So permission has been granted. Then export goods for display or sale in permitted shops set up abroad. Then display or sell in permitted shops set up abroad and showrooms, okay, or set up showrooms or retail outlets at international airports. So all these units are allowed to set up all these things and export or sell their goods. Clear till here? So all this has not been asked, but when doing this, you can be rest assured that this chapter is once and for all completely covered. Then coming to one aspect which is about quality complaints and trade disputes. Quality complaints and trade dispute. Now when we export, so many times whenever sale is made, so whenever you make a sale, if the sale is if you make a sale and the goods are, let's say, defective, okay, or they do not, it is not as per quality, not as per standard, then what happens? The goods are returned and they are returned back, and it is called as a sales return. Yes or no? It is called as a sales return. Tell me one thing, will the exporter like a sales return? Will a exporter like a sales return? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, so exporter will not like a sales return. He will say, what nonsense, my goods are of proper quality. The foreigner will say, what rubbish, the quality is not there, you have lied, etc. So there can be disputes, there can be quality issues, quality complaints, and trade disputes. So the government has also set up a mechanism to hear these complaints, to resolve matters, etc. To even help our exporters and also to guide our exporters. So exporters need to project a good image of the country abroad to promote exports. Maintaining a proper relationship with foreign buyers is utmost important. Okay, and it should be settled amicably and as soon as possible. In an effort to resolve such kind of complaints and trade disputes and create confidence in the business environment, a mechanism is laid down to address such complaints and disputes in a amicable way. Now, quality complaints or trade disputes may be considered, okay, if the complaints are received from foreign buyers, if complaints are of imported against foreign supplies, okay, complaints are of unethical commercial dealing, okay, or it is with respect to quality of certain products supplied, etc. So these complaints can be heard. Now proper mechanism or a institution has been made, a mechanism for handling complaints or trade disputes. So committee is made on quality complaints and trade disputes to deal effectively with the increasing number of complaints and disputes. A committee is made, okay, and it will be constituted in 22 regional offices of the DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade. So there are going to be 22 offices. Who's going to be there? So then there's going to be a chairperson, member, all these members, representative of the branch, bank, etc. Now, what is the concept or what is the function of this quality control? The is responsible for holding inquiries and investigating into all quality related complaints and other trade related complaints. It will take a prompt and effective steps to resolve and redress the grievances of importers, exporters, overseas buyers. Okay, and they will try to resolve this within 3 months. Whenever required, a committee may take assistance of the various councils commodity boards to settle the disputes. Now, proceedings under this are only reconciliatory in nature, and the aggrieved party, whether the borrower or this, is free to pursue any legal recourse against the other arrearing party. Now, tell me one thing: are we going to pass judgments, or we are trying to find a middle path? This committee will try to pass judgment. Is it a court? Can we pass an order on a foreigner? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, it is merely trying to reconcile. Reconcile means get them together, amicable settlement, mutual settlement, do that. But if they are not happy with the settlement, you go file wherever you want the case. Okay? That we are not going to stop you. You're always free to pursue other legal remedies. Procedure to deal with complaints and trade disputes. So the procedure will be laid down. Okay? And in the handbook of procedures, and whenever they find that there is a mistake from our end, the export inspection agency or any technical authority can ensure that the certain corrective or remedial measures are taken. Now, in the FTP policy, there are certain prohibited areas and prohibited goods. For India's foreign trade policy prohibits the following, dealing with the following countries. Tell me one thing. 1, 2, I think you will be able to guess it. You think we like Pakistan? Pakistan again. Then North Korea. North Korea, they try to launch a lot of missiles and try to, act in a non-unruly manner. Iraq. So sometimes we put certain items under the prohibited list. Import or exports in arms and arm related with Iraq, defense related with North Korea, any with respect to nuclear energy with respect to Iran, okay, imports from of charcoal from Somalia. So like this kind of restrictions can be put in. Then we come to one of the most easiest part, which I feel they can ask. So around 2 3 marks, very very simple. If I want to export, I need to have a code called as the IEC code. Have you heard of that? Importer Exporter Code. So here they are saying what is the IEC code? IEC code is actually a 10-digit number issued by the Director General of Foreign Trade, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India. Now you have to make an application in ANF 2A. The name of the form is ANF 2A. Is at the head office. Now Ayat Niyat, okay, that is import export, ANF 2A, the name of the form, to the nearest regional authority of the DGFT. The validity, you just need one IEC code. You can then deal with as many goods as you want, and all your branches etc. can use that. For example, Reliance Industries will get one IEC code and all the branches, all the companies can use it. So for the company, all the branches can then use it. In case you've lost it, you can file an affidavit and get a second IEC code or copy. You can surrender it in case you've discontinued your business. The application fee is 250 rupees. Now, certain persons are exempted from getting a IEC number. So importers and exporters covered under clause 3. Okay, you don't have to get into the details, but just remember under clause 3, whoever mentioned like government departments etc. do not need a IEC code. Ministries and government, state government, central government do not require. Who are not connected with trade at all. So maybe if I am importing and I'm not concerned with business for my personal use, I can import it. If the consignment value is not exceeding 25,000, so it might be, I might try to import once for business purpose which is not exceeding 25,000. So then I can go ahead and do it because this is the limit. Then coming to what all documents are required to get a IEC code. Very very simple. You go to open anything before any authority. let's say if my company wants to open a bank account also. So basic details are always asked, whether it be a LLP or a company or any other organization, they will ask for the PAN card. So here they are telling what all documents are required to be submitted to get a IEC code. So one will be your PAN card, one will be your address proof, your registration number, SIN number, LLP number, bank account details, details of the persons running it, partner, director, company secretary, details of the signatory, the identity proof, photograph, etc. So these are the documents that you require to get a IEC code. Very, very simple. Now again, further to simplified import and export, they have said you require certain documents to clear for import export. Under the FTP, they are saying that you require only three main documents: mandatory documents for export of goods from India and mandatory documents for import of goods into India. So have they given a lot of documents or only three documents? How many documents? If you want to export, bill of lading, invoice, and a bill of export. So this is if you are exporting goods out of India, you would require invoice, you would require a bill of export, and you will require a bill of lading. Bill of lading is basically for the transit document. I give it to the shipper who's going to take the conveyance. It's a bill of lading that the goods have been entered. I have loaded onto the boat. I have given it to the consigner. So जो भी लेके जा रहा है, the person who's going to commute it, maybe it could be a shipping company, etc. So one is a bill of lading, invoice, and a bill of export. This is filed with the customs authority. Same way for import, a bill of entry, invoice, and a bill of lading again. So very simple little documents are there for import and export. Then comes to this principles of restriction. Again, supremely simple, not very difficult. DGFT may through a notification impose restrictions on certain import and export. Now why will they put restrictions? Logically, if it is against public policy, it is to protect any arms, animals, etc. If it is to protect any violation of any intellectual property rights, it is prevention of any use of prison labor, to protect the national artistic treasuries, archaeological value. I'm trying to export some very rare product, etc. Conservation of natural resources, so protection of trade from fissionable materials, and prevention of traffic in arms, ammunition, and war. So basically, whenever we feel that it is for the integrity of India, sovereignty of India, the security of India, restrictions can be imposed, or there is with respect to any secrecy, or with respect to protecting the domestic market, or to protect the and flora, fauna, or any requirement of India, then we can have certain kind of restrictions. So these are some of the cases, certain principles or instances where restrictions can be put on import and export. So very simple. Then that is it. Now just coming to two points, one question: import and export which is prohibited, okay, and how can those items be imported and exported? So basically, when can certain items be disallowed? So if it is under the reserved category for export by the state trading enterprise. So state trading enterprises, when the state government is planning to buy and sell, and they put certain restrictions on certain items from being exported. So then you can't deal with it except if you have got a no objection certificate from the authority. Items which have been put on the prohibited items list by the customs authority, that you can't deal with it. Items on the restricted items given by the any of the authorities, or exports of restricted chemicals, organisms, materials, equipment, etc. All of this cannot be done unless you get a NOC from the respective authorities. Then they've asked, discuss the various categories of items not eligible. So not eligible are those items which do not get the benefits under this scheme. So you can have those things that we had discussed before: cereals, meat products, etc. So that is it. We are done with the chapter.